Today on Nova
All
Legends
right.
podcast, I have Madison football coach Justin Counts, recently named Washington Post Coach of the Year, an amazing accomplishment. His Madison Warhawks narrowly lost in one of the greatest football games I've ever seen, 21-20 to Oscar Smith down at Harrisonburg last Saturday. Coach, congratulations. Great to see you.
Thank you, Julian. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, of course. Well, I mentioned Washington Post Coach of the Year. It doesn't happen every day where a coach whose team does not win the final game, whose team I don't think had a first team member on the on the Washington Post team, even though I find it hard to believe that Dominic Nisley should not be a first team All Met, um, but also you're number nine team in the Metro. For you to win the Coach of the Year, that's a huge accomplishment. How did it feel when you knew you won the award?
Well, I think, Julian, to your point, I think it's kind of a reflection of maybe the success that we've had over the last several years, and I think it's a certainly an honor. But I do believe, obviously, it goes to the coaches that we've got on the staff, to the kids. I mean, you're not going to get that award unless you're having some success, and obviously, we've got great players, and they've done really well the last couple of years. But I do think it's kind of maybe a cumulative award from kind of the success we've had over the last several seasons.
Yeah. Well, congratulations again, Coach. When I think back on last week's game, it was just an amazing experience to be there. And even though I'm truly in the Madison camp as a fan of Northern Virginia football, and I like the way you guys do business, um, I was definitely a partisan there, but I didn't really have a dog in the fight. But I was just so thankful that I went down there. My daughter was at James Madison, so I had to pick her up for school.
Right, right.
And I probably would have gone anyway, but I had to go. And I'm just so thankful that I was there. When you think about that game, um, do you believe in moral victories at all? I think going into that game, people thought this was definitely an elite team in the league with the Freedom team that you lost to soundly, and the Maury team that won five. And you guys went toe to toe to them. Anyone that was at that game knew you had every chance to win the game. Did you take are there moral victories? Can you take a lot of great things away from that game?
Well, I think that's two separate things, Julian. I don't really believe in moral victories. And obviously you play to win the game, but there are certainly lessons that can be learned in any time you compete. And I think for us as a group, there's a lot of stuff that I'm very proud of. There's a lot of things that we did. But for we didn't really have a lot of adversity this season. We had a couple of really close games, and I think you learn a lot about yourself in times of adversity. And I think that for as a high school coach and having the opportunity to work with these guys at this stage in their life, for me, it's kind of about the lessons that you learn from the game, and there's certainly a lot that we can take away that might be help us moving forward down the line to help deal with adversity and things that don't go the way that we're hoping they go.
Exactly, Coach. So, last week in Prince William County, five coaches stepped down, five varsity coaches stepped down. And that's a football crazy county. I think even more so than Fairfax. So it was very surprising. And there were big jobs like Colgan, Forest Park. These aren't like little schools, Gainesville, that lost their coaches. When you participate in an event like you did last week, just to be on that big stage and be able to compete at that level, does it make it all worth it? I mean, there's something going on in the coaching profession that's making it difficult for folks to do their job and to want to stay forever. But when you're on that big stage, does it make it all worth it that, all the hard work we put in is paying off?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I think that anytime you have success, it certainly rewards the work that you're putting in there. But I think, the reason that I coach is a lot more than wins and losses. And you could say, well, that's easy to say. You guys have been winning a lot of football games. But I think for me, the coaches that I had in high school had such an impact on me and my life and the direction that it was going to go that I just wanted to be able to give some of that back to kids that I work with. And obviously, sports has been a huge part of my life and everything that I've done up to this point. So that's the vehicle that helps me do that. I think we're very fortunate at Madison that we have a community that's very supportive and very understanding of what the purpose of sports is and kind of the role it plays in the overall education of their kids. So I don't catch a lot of stuff that maybe some other coaches might have to deal with. have an administration at Madison that's very supportive of sports and also understands its role within the school and the community. So from that end, I don't feel kind of the pressure that maybe some other people feel. Obviously, coaching it takes a lot of time. I mean, we started football practice August 5th, and we ended in December. But we're working. Basically, we're going to give these kids the holiday break off, and then when we come back, we're back in the weight room and we're starting again for next year. So it's a year-round job, and I can see how if you've got a family or young kids, it takes a lot of time away from that. My wife is also a coach, so that's kind of what we do in our family, but I could see how it can be taxing for other people. So it's difficult, but I do think I take a lot of uh, pleasure, and it really rewards me to see these young guys come in as ninth graders and see what they look like when they walk out of here as 12th graders and kind of the growth that they have. And that, to me, provides a lot of meaning for my life. So that's why I'm sticking with it.
Exactly. Yeah, in a way, coach, I was, maybe it was a good thing that you lost. Just that I knew a competitor like you would come back again because you're not going to stop until you win that thing. So I felt like, well, we can count on Coach Counts for next year because he's not gonna stop on that one. Do you believe things happen for a reason? No, the end of that game was just lunacy. And we're going to go through the game in depth, but you couldn't have scripted a game like this. There's so many like foreshadowing that came back. There's so many things about this game that were just unbelievable. Do you believe that things happen for a reason?
I do. I do. I've always felt that way. That the challenge for me is always to try to figure out what that reason is, but I do. I think things happen for a reason. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, that's the painful thing about losses like that. Was it, football, you can go seasons without being in a close game. Oscar Smith didn't have a close game all year. They even beat teams like Kings Fork pretty easily, very good football program. So football, you just don't have a lot of great games. They usually one team imposes its will on the other team and they finally win. You had some close moments during the year, but
Mhm.
you eventually were able to pull away. Like my son played a regional final in soccer against South Lakes that they won. He was a Yorktown player, and it was a crazy game. They scored with seconds ago, then they went to the 24th penalty kick and they won. But in soccer and in baseball, you have games like that. It's so normal to have great games. You don't have football games like that as often. It just doesn't come down to a one possession game in football. That so this was this one of the greatest games you ever been part of?
Absolutely. I think that both teams showed a lot of resiliency. I think there was, you know, I think in the first half, Oscar Smith was controlling the game pretty well. We made some mistakes, put ourselves in some bad positions, but they were pretty much doing that. But I think we left after halftime. We had the last drive we had right before the end of the half. We felt like we did some things pretty well, and our defense was playing great to keep us in the game, and we felt pretty energized going into halftime. And then we had a great third quarter. We really started. I thought we controlled the third quarter pretty well. Our defense played great. We moved the ball. We scored early on our first drive, and then we scored right as it turned into the fourth quarter. So I felt like the momentum had kind of shifted to us, and I thought that those guys, for a team that was young and a team that hadn't really been in those types of situations, they handled that very well. So I think it kind of goes to kind of talk about both programs. When you got kids that are used to winning, they're kids that are from kind of winning programs where that's kind of the expectation. um, I think it kind of breeds that idea that we're going to be successful no matter what's kind of going through, and you don't really have that give up or that emotional ride that things aren't going our way. It's over. You think, well, we've been here in these types of situations, we can handle this. So I thought both teams did that fantastically, and then. Obviously we get the ball back with 29 seconds left, and a lot of teams would have said, great season, good job. We gave them a heck of a fight. But our boys just kept fighting and scrapping, and we got to about the 50-yard line with maybe 5 seconds left. We had a timeout, and the boys came over, and we were kind of discussing what our options were going to be for kind of a last second, last gasp play. And they were like, just give us a shot. We'll figure this out. And they were really positive about it. So, we kind of called the Hail Mary play, and I'd like to say that was just great coaching, but those boys just made a play. Kale, our quarterback, ran around, bought some time, Dom kind of slipped past those guys when Kale was running around and everybody thought maybe he was getting sacked and the game was going to be over, and he just fired the ball down there, took a big shot, and Dom made a play. It was just kind of special to see the fact that um, nobody gave up on either side at any point. As long as there was still time on the clock, both teams were fighting and scrapping as long as they could. And that's all you can ask for as a coach, is that your kids give you everything they got till the end of the game.
Yeah, Kale's three passes on that drive were incredible. You cannot throw three better passes. One maybe a foot too long, but for him to come up big like that, just incredible. And Lonnie Andrews, a sophomore, I didn't know he was a sophomore till after the
Yeah.
game. That
Yeah.
guy is just a stud. I mean,
He
that
is.
93-yard drive that they put together when they hadn't scored since the first drive of the game, that was amazing that he was able to do that. Credit to that kid. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves. I want to talk about going into the game. Now, I heard a lot of trash talk online, and I know you're not online, you're smart, but I have to deal with this stuff online. And a lot of folks, like, didn't give Madison a chance. But one guy did was Coach Overton. He told me that unlike Freedom, Woodbridge, and Maury, those elite teams, Oscar Smith was a pretty good matchup for Madison because they share similar strengths. They're both kind of power teams. It's not like it's a really fast team and speed everywhere. Oscar Smith is a power team, elite team, but a power team. So it was a good matchup for Madison. Did you feel that way going in?
Well, I would say that I felt good about the fact that I feel like they want to run the ball. I think that's kind of what they want to do. They certainly have guys on the outside who are capable
Yeah.
of making plays and are really talented. But I think deep down they want to run the ball, and if they can run the ball, that's what they'll do. I felt that was one of the strengths of our defense, was our ability to play the run. And I felt really good about our secondary this year. I think this is one of the best secondaries that we've had. Now, obviously, we were going to be tested um, with that level of athlete on the outside. Um, they had a player number 6 who I believe is going to Buffalo. He was a senior. He got injured maybe the first drive of the game
Mhm.
on a tackle, hurt his ankle, and that I think kind of changed the way they approached the passing game a little bit. Obviously, number 1 is extremely talented kid. He's a junior and going to be a heck of a player. Already is, but is going to be a heck of a player on Saturdays, I'm sure. But that kind of changed the way they approached the passing game a little bit, and I think it took them a little while to figure out. They ended up putting number 0, who was their best defensive back and another great athlete, out there to give them a little bit more balance in their passing game when they had that last drive. So I do think, to Coach Overton's point, um, what they wanted to do was pound the ball, and that was really our strength. And I think, as opposed to Freedom, who really spreads you out and then runs the ball in more of a spread situation and kind of makes you pick your poison as to how you're going to cover guys and kind of picks a matchup that. Um, and obviously, Freedom had some special guys all over the place, so it was really tough to match up with them. Um, but I do think that was a matchup that was a little better for us, and we knew if we had a chance in this game, we were going to have to be able to stop the run.
Yeah. Well, one theme of this game, and this is something you guys have done all year. You guys came up big on fourth down
Yeah,
several times in the first quarter, kept you in the game. I think if they would have scored 14-0, it may have been a little tougher. They may have grown more into the game. But your defense, again, your fourth down, your short yardage defense is elite. And your ability to make open field tackles throughout the game, because you can't over pursue against a team that's dangerous, because if everyone comes and pursues the ball, one cut and you're gone. I felt those are two of the keys: your short yardage defense and your ability to make open field tackles.
absolutely. I think those are two of the strengths of our team. I think number 1, we practice it a lot. I mean, tackling is a huge part of what we do. It's an emphasis that our defensive coaches put in every week. We really work on tackling, and I do think that was a strength. I think particularly in our game against WNL and our game against Lake Braddock, where they get the ball out quickly to playmakers in space, and we held those guys for the most part to short. They weren't breaking tackles and getting long gains out of those plays. So we're making teams drive the ball down the field as opposed to giving up huge chunk plays. And a lot of that is attributed to our tackling. And then when you get them in situations that are third and short or fourth and short, we get really stout. And our defensive line and linebackers have been great all year. And I would probably, I don't know this, but I would guess we probably had anywhere from 10 to 15 fourth down stops, fourth and short stops throughout the year. And I don't know that we gave up more than three or four of them where people converted. I think we've just been great at that all year long. And it just, again, kind of goes to show or speak about the kids that we had playing those positions and kind of the heart that they have and the fact that they're just unwilling to yield anything. And they just fought you, when people gained yards and people scored on us, they earned it. They had to really work to get those points.
Yeah, it was a particularly important factor in this game because they did not have a punter. I don't think they probably punted all year. So fourth down means they were going to go for it after after the first two or three punts. So I thought, it was even more important than normal. So, one thing to Madison, you guys don't turn the ball over generally. You don't make a lot of mistakes. You don't have penalties. Um, Unfortunately, this game you did. You had turnovers, you had block punt, penalties that are probably out of character, but you were still only down 7-0, which, and I know that kind of had to give you a little bit of energy, like the fact that we can make mistakes and still be very much in this game, had to be great. Do you think when a team makes mistakes like that, do you think it's because of nerves, or do you think it's because you're trying to raise your game to an elite level, and sometimes when you do a little bit too much, and that can cause mistakes as well?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of both. I don't know that we had a lot of nerves. I think that our one of our um, strengths as a team really is the fact that these guys have been in a lot of big games, and I think we were ready for the game. I don't feel like nerves was probably an issue. I do think you got to credit Oscar Smith a little bit on some of those. They're so fast in the back end. I think we were maybe a little bit surprised when the second or third guy got there so quickly. We're fighting for extra yards. I would say on two of those fumbles, our guys are fighting for extra yards like they've done all year long, and then a guy comes in that maybe we weren't expecting to be there just because he was so fast and we get a hit and they put their helmet right on the ball twice and knocked those out of there. So I think you got to credit Oscar Smith a little bit for that, but I do think it's just we turned the ball over 5 times all year and we turned the ball over 4 times in that game, and it's just something I it's something that we're going to look back on and try to think about reasons why it happened. But I don't think nerves is the issue. I think probably the speed of the game and the fact that it's probably a little bit different than you experienced in the regular season. And I think that again, a little bit of credit to Oscar Smith for making some of those plays.
Absolutely. So at halftime, you mentioned that the drive going into half gave you some momentum into the second half, and you guys clearly dominated the third quarter and the first part of the first half of the fourth quarter for sure, and the last 25 seconds. Uh, were there were there clear adjustments that you were able to make at halftime that you're able to take advantage of in the second half?
Yeah, I think it was twofold. I think number one, it was just trying to make sure that everybody was staying positive and realize that we were right in this thing, and that a couple of plays here and there, particularly we fumbled the ball down there probably the 15 or 20 yard line going in after Dom had kind of broken off a long run, and then we had another successful run, and it felt like we found something in the run game that we felt we could go back to. So we talked about that a little bit at halftime, and then I felt like our kids were really into it. I think the offensive line in particular, again, you're going to credit Oscar Smith. I think the overall speed, takes a little bit of time to get used to the fact that those guys are so fast. And so we had to make a few adjustments in some of our angles and kind of our blocking rules to accommodate some of the speed that they had. But I felt like we had a good plan going into the third quarter. And then the boys started executing a little bit. And it's kind of, you get a little bit of momentum and that builds on ourselves and everybody starts feeling good and we start executing things. It was still tough, but we were getting, instead of one or two, we were getting three or four or maybe four or five on a couple. And that kind of gave us some confidence. And then once you get some continuity and you sustain a drive a little bit, people start getting locked in, people start getting in a rhythm. So I do think we felt really good coming out of halftime, and that third quarter, first drive of the third quarter kind of gave us a real boost of energy.
Exactly. Now, Dominic Nisley, I mean, he's had so many great games in his career, but this was an amazing game against in the state championship against a very high level defense. Unbelievable. Were you surprised that you were able to get him into the game so much? I saw you moved him all over the place. He was everywhere, even on defense. Did that surprise you that you were able to get him free like you were able to?
Uh, no, nothing that Dominic does surprises me. I felt like, obviously all year long, we've been trying to figure out different ways to get him the ball. He's clearly the focus of every defense that we play. And Coach Hecht and our offensive staff, that's really the only thing I tasked them with all year was try to figure out as many different ways that we can get Dom the ball and in space and let him work. So that was part of the game plan, obviously, was to try to move him around, try to limit their ability to put multiple guys on him and try to figure out ways to get him the ball that he can be successful. So I thought we did a pretty good job with that. But obviously, he's making plays. I mean, it's not we threw a 5 yard out that he turned into a 40-yard touchdown. It's not like that was a super creative play. It was just a way to get him the ball and then let him be an athlete. And Dom's been working toward that game, his whole career. He's really put the work in. He made a decision probably after his 10th grade year that he wanted to be a Division I college football player, and everything he's done from that point was to try to put himself in position to accomplish that. And he's really developed as a leader. He's really developed and matured as a young man. His work ethic has been fantastic. He's changed his body. He put on 25 pounds from the end of last year to this year to
Wow.
be able to handle that larger load and to be able to run between the tackles a little bit better. But he was a super talent when he walked into Madison High School. There's nothing that I can take credit for as far as his talent, but I do take a lot of pride in the fact that he's developed into a leader. He's shown our young guys what it looks like. When your best players are the guys that work and the guys who put in the effort, you have the chance to be a really successful team. So I'm super proud of Dominic, and I really appreciate everything he's done for our program and kind of the example he set for our younger guys to see what an elite level player, the work that goes into being an elite level player.
Yeah. Coach, is he still going to Coastal Carolina? I'd heard that he may decommit and go somewhere else. Is he going to Coastal?
Yeah, he's going. His last day of school was Friday. He's going to be there in first week of January.
Oh,
So
awesome.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
best
we're excited. Yeah, he's graduated. Really proud of Dominic.
yeah. Best of luck with him. It's too bad you can't have him back for a red shirt fifth
Right.
season. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, one thing that happened in this game is if there's analytics about extra points, that you'd be studying up on what to do on these extra points. It was crazy because you missed the first extra point. So instead of 7-all, it was 7-6 in the third quarter. Kicker gets hurt, which is going to come back later on. Now the second touchdown when you went up 12-7 was interesting because I remember thinking about that and I'm like, well, I probably would kick this because at least if they score, you make them make an extra point. But if you miss this, then they don't even have to make an extra point. They can even go for two to try to go up three. So I was actually kind of surprised that you went for two. But I think Valen made a great catch over the middle, great pass.
Yeah, Anthony
Wait,
Voinis.
I'm sorry. Another great pass by Cale Yates, and so they ended up being a great play. Was that a tough decision to go for two at that point?
Um, no, I don't really think so. I mean, we felt pretty good about some of our 2 point plays that we had that we've been practicing that week. And frankly, at that point in the game, it was right at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I thought we were late enough in the game to take that shot and try to get the points and try to put ourselves in a position that um, we were up a full score and an extra point. So yeah, we didn't really talk about that much. I just decided I made the decision that we were going to go for it, and fortunately, the boys made a heck of a play to get us those 2 points.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest possessions in the game is you guys had clearly by mid second half, you guys were in control of the game, clearly the favorites to win, and you get the ball around midfield, and Oscar Smith has a huge three and out stop. That was a really big moment in the game because they didn't have any momentum at all. But they made you punt. Your punter came up huge, put him inside the 10. So still they had 93 yards to go for a touchdown. They had not scored in almost 4 quarters. So you had to feel pretty good. But then Lonnie Andrews just put together a drive. Now when you're playing a team like Oscar Smith, when you have that much when they have 93 yards to go, there's also a sense you have a lot of field to cover as well, isn't
Yep, for sure.
it?
I mean, uh, they scare you every time they have the ball. They have the ability to score on one play. I mean, from a lot of different positions. So clearly that's a concern. That last three and out was frustrating. We were hoping that we could get a first down or two, and maybe even put some points on the board and kind of put us up two scores and really put the game out of reach at that point. Um, but you got to give credit to them. They really kind of made a commitment to stop the run at that point. They were sending everybody, and they got into us quickly. And we had a chance on third down. We just missed. They made a nice defensive play. We missed on a third down conversion, so we had to give the ball back. And obviously, our punter made a great play, put him down deep. And our defense has been there for us all year long. So, and obviously, at that point, you don't want them to have the ball, but um, we knew we were going to try to make them drive the field, try to make them and again, kind of rely on our ability to tackle, kind of rely on our pass rush. Um, and we put Dom in on defense to try to give us a little bit more speed on the back end to try to limit their ability to get over top of us. But I don't know that I felt great at the moment, but I think we felt like we were in a pretty good position.
Yeah, I mean, this kid just shows what an amazing future he has in the game. As like I said, a sophomore, he was so poised. And in the post-game interview, he said they didn't have much confidence when they came on the field because they hadn't done anything, and he was
Right.
very honest. And I think he mentioned they brought in number zero on the offensive end, and that did help. But they did drive down. They converted some third downs, maybe even a fourth down in that drive, but at least some third downs. And then they were able to get the ball back. We mentioned a fumble. Just you had the ball midfield, just trying to get the extra 3 or 4 yards, fumble the ball back. And then Oscar Smith goes in and scores again. And so all of a sudden, just 4 minutes later, you go from being up 14-7 in complete control of the game to being down 21-14. And as we mentioned, K.O. Yates' performance in that last drive was just unbelievable. The three passes that he threw, the ability to get loose and throw the Hail Mary, and then on the 2-point conversion to the pass that he threw. I mean, it was not far away from being a completion. I'm sure Dom, I'm sure Dom can make that catch probably 40% of the time or something. It wasn't out of the realm of possibility that he could come up with that ball. You know, we don't talk a lot about Kale Yates. He's probably been almost in the shadow of Dom and other great players since he's been at maybe even his brother, I believe, coach at one time at Madison. Talk a little bit about how special he is. When I left, he got second team All State on this for Virginia. I was very happy to see that because I'm sure there are much bigger college prospects that he beat out for that spot. But tell us a little bit about Cale Yates and what he's meant to the program in the last 3 years.
Well, I really can't say enough good things about Kale. I think, you know, he's an undersized quarterback, but he is probably the hardest working kid that we've had in the program. I mean, he's in the weight room all the time. He's taking kids out to the field in the off season. He personifies leadership. And what he also brings is a real calming presence to our team. He's as cool a customer as you're going to find, and I think which is a little bit counter to the way he plays the game. I mean, he's a little bit of a gunslinger. He's really good when the play breaks down and he's got to run around and find somebody and make some plays. Um, he does not turn the football over. He's great at controlling kind of the tempo of the offense. He's great at understanding what everybody's supposed to do and getting guys in position. He's just everything you want in a leader. And um, to have a guy like that who's kind of running, he's essentially, and I know this gets used a lot, but he's an extension of the coaching staff on the field because he's so familiar with what we're doing. He's got such a grasp of our offense, and him and Coach Heck can communicate without really even saying anything. They can just kind of look at each other. They understand what's going on. Kale can relay what's working out there, what he sees, and helps us make adjustments during the game. And everybody just believes in him. And obviously he's a great baseball player also. So we've seen him perform on the big stage out there. But what he brings to our football team, like I said, is just an absolute complete leadership, complete control, and a calming influence that keeps everybody kind of that even keel so that we don't get too high when we're playing well, and we certainly don't get low when things start going the wrong direction.
Yeah, he's a throwback quarterback, not the technical athlete that can execute the play that's given to him, but he's kind of a throwback, a leader, the guy who makes big plays. He's kind of the quarterback that maybe guys like me and you grew up with.
He's everything. I mean, I think if I was going to, if he was 6'3", he'd be, an FBS, Power 5 quarterback. I mean, he's got all the tools. He's got a big arm. He's got all the heart. He runs well. He's strong. All the intangibles. The only thing that's holding him back is that he's not as big as everybody else. But um, again, I think you talk about the cliche, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. He's got as much fight as anybody.
Yeah. Well, he obviously rose to the occasion. Were there other players on the field? And I know all your players played well, but did anyone surprise you that day? Was able to really step up their game at that level that you may not have seen it coming?
Um, I don't know. I feel like we played at a pretty high level all year long. I mean, I think that more so what I saw was just the willingness to compete from everybody. I didn't see anybody back down at any point. I felt like um, we just gave everything we had. We didn't play our cleanest football game. There were certainly mistakes and things that we'd like to do different, but as far as just the willingness to compete, the willingness to give everything you had to a team, the willingness to leave it all out on the football field, I felt like our guys did that. Everybody who got a chance to get out there played that way. And for me, I'm still pretty sore from the result, but as a coach, I look back and that, was really all you can ask of your guys is that they give you everything they've got. And I felt like they did that. So I'm going to take a little bit of solace in the fact that we played that type of football game and that the kids left everything out on the field.
You're talking about the pain that looking back, and I still replay the game in my mind. One day I'm going to watch the whole thing again. I'm sure. I'm sure you probably already watched it. Is there joy that you see when you watch it and you think back on the game as well, though the fact, the level of effort, and you hear these things. Northern Virginia football is not good enough. We can't compete with these guys. Is there joy in the fact that you took a team out there and went toe to toe with a quality program?
Yeah, you know what, Julian, I don't know that joy is the word that I would use. I think there's certainly some pride. I think that I don't know that I take a lot of pleasure in the fact, obviously we lost the game and we didn't get the result that we want. Like we talked about earlier, I'm not going to be looking for a moral victory in this, but I am proud of the kids and kind of everything that they did to lead up to this point. I mean, we lost, like you said, we lost pretty badly to Freedom in the semifinals last year. And I thought we fought in that game. I just thought that that one got out of control a little bit early for us. Um, but the work that they put in to all through the off season to get ready for the season, the work that they've put in when we started on August 5th all the way through, the work that we put in, the 5 weeks of extra postseason stuff and the way they prepared every week to play those games and the way they prepared for this one. I mean, I just take a lot of pride in the fact that these guys bought in so heavily to Madison football and that everybody believed in this one common goal and that everybody was working toward that. To me, as a coach, is something that I'm going to remember forever. This was a real special group for us. It doesn't happen this way. These guys get along. They enjoy coming to practice. They make practice fun. And that's not the case every year. So I'm going to take a lot of pride in this team and the fact that, again, we didn't win the game, but we went out kind of the way we played the whole season. We went out swinging, we went out fighting, and these guys gave me everything they had.
And that growth that you saw, their ability to do that, even though a lot of the players graduate, that growth remains with the program. Do you think that still gives the program confidence at that level in the future?
Absolutely. I think that these guys see the fact that kids that look a lot like them were able to accomplish some really great things. And um, they did that not because they wanted to, they did that because they worked for it. And I think that lesson in itself is probably the biggest lesson that our young guys get from being able to spend this extra time with this group is the fact that there are certain, you're not going to accomplish things by putting your head on the pillow and wishing for them. You're going to accomplish them by getting in the weight room or getting on the field and working for it. And you got to have kind of the same type of buy-in. You got to have a commitment from a large group of kids that if you want to accomplish things like this. And we've been really fortunate the last couple of years to have leadership from our seniors that they all make the decision that they want to continue the success that the program's had and they put the work in. And for us, that's the biggest legacy that these seniors can leave is how you are successful, what you have to do to be successful, and showing these young guys what it's all about. And I don't think that, maybe besides Dom, I don't know that we had anybody who walked into the school was as an elite football talent. I think these kids have worked their tails off to make them really good high school football players. And I think that they've showed these young guys that through their hard work, they can accomplish the things that they want to accomplish if they put their mind to it and they do the work.
Yeah. Well, I think you've earned a lot of fans the way this team has performed, especially in the postseason. Now, let's get back to game for a second. So you scored the incredible touchdown, and I'm watching you on the bench, you guys. I see you talking to your coaches. You're already trying to decide what to do next. Didn't get much chance to celebrate that. You initially line up for there's a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty called. You lose 15 yards. So it's going to be from the 18-yard line. So it's going to be either a 35-yard point after touchdown or a 18-yard 2-point conversion. What was the thought process in deciding to go for two?
Yeah. So originally when we scored immediately, I was going to go for two. I just felt like Kale was locked in. I felt like we had a lot of momentum. I thought we might be able to catch them in a moment of kind of feeling sorry for themselves for a second. So immediately I was going to go for two. Once we got pushed back, I had some second thoughts on it, thinking it was going to be difficult to convert from 18 yards out. But I also knew that our kicker was hurt and that we were going to rely on a JV kicker who was in his first year of football and probably in his life had kicked one field goal and maybe 7 or 8 extra points. So I felt like putting him in that situation to have to make a 35-yard field goal with the team season on the line in that type of environment was probably not fair to him as a player. Now, I do think he's the type of kid who would tell me that he would make it, and maybe I robbed him of that opportunity. But I looked at Kale and Dom, and they said, "Give us a chance. We could, And I thought, well, I'm going to put the ball into our best players' hands, and we're going to try to make a play here. And if we do that, at least I know that I gave our best guys an opportunity to do that, and we're going to take our shot there." I thought we had a really good play called. We felt like they were going to play us man to man. I thought that they'd probably try to shade a safety over to Dom a little bit to give him some help. And I thought we called a really good play. The read for Kale was basically if he felt like he had Dom in a situation that he could get a one-on-one and take a shot, we were going to take that. And then we were going to try to sneak our tailback kind of through the middle of the field and see if he got lost there. And have the other wide receivers on the other side try to occupy the safety. We got the look that we were hoping for. They put 0 on Dom, their best guy on our best guy. And we felt like we would take a shot there. Kale liked the pre-snap look that he got. And he threw the ball, like you said, I think he threw a perfect ball, pretty much where we had the only chance to catch the ball. And like you said, also, it was probably a play where you had maybe a 30 or 40% chance of catching the ball. And Dom dove for it. He had a chance with it, but would have been a hell of a catch. And like I said, we took our shot with our two best guys, and I can certainly live with that decision.
Absolutely. What a moment in the stands. It was just, I mean, we were all was buzzing. I was kind of sitting by myself, no one really to talk to. It was just, yeah, it was the drama was incredible. And I'm glad I didn't have to be in your position, making those incredible decisions. So, Coach, I thought both non-sportsmanlike penalties could have not been called. They called the first one on Oscar Smith for the dirty bird, but he did it like for 2 seconds. It wasn't like the whole team got together and they did this big thing. It was a quick celebration, I think, and that's what they called the penalty on. So I thought that was a little bit picky. And then your play, it looked like to me, and I was able to get a great I think I got the best look at it than anybody. Because I just happened to be taking a live video from Facebook. I'm not sure if you actually saw it, but it looked like the kid, he threw his helmet down straight and it just took a really funny bounce. And pretty unlucky bounce, actually. It didn't have to bounce that way, but there was no other opponents weren't there. It wasn't like it was in danger of getting into play. It was weird. And then your great teammate sees the danger, rushes on the field and grabs the helmet and gets it off. I mean, it was beautiful, like teamwork, trying to solve the situation. And then there's a ref just sitting there, throwing the flag. Do you have any comment or do you have any opinion of those penalties?
Yeah, I do. And the first thing I want to say before I get into this is I thought it was a really well officiated game.
I did too.
I
I
thought
did
the
too.
refs were great. I would have them ref any of our games in the future at any point.
Yeah.
I think to your point, to me, I've never liked the unsportsmanlike conduct on celebration plays at all in general, not specifically to this game. But my personal feeling is it's high school football. These guys are super excited that they scored a touchdown. I don't mind the emotion and the excitement. If you're not taunting the other team, if there's nothing directed at the other team, I don't personally feel like that should be a penalty. However, that's not the rule. The rule is you can't dance, you can't do those things. So if by the rule they see the kid, I mean, Dominic is, he's a super energetic, exciting kid, and we probably had two or three penalties throughout the year of him celebrating the end zone to the point where I made a deal with him. I said, Dom, you can do any celebration you want. Just get off the field first and come do it on the sidelines. So you'll see when he scores his touchdowns now, he sprints as fast as he can to the sideline to get with his teammates and do his little dance or whatever he's going to do. And I personally, I think that's great. Yeah, like I said, I want to see the emotion of these kids. They've worked really hard for these opportunities. They scored. They ought to be able to do that. So I have that on the one hand. On the other hand, it is the rule. You're not allowed to do that. So once they called the penalty on Oscar Smith, I think the ref's in a position that if we did something similar, he's got to call that. I am like you. I don't like the call, but I can't blame the referee for enforcing the rule that's on the books. I just don't like the rule. Um, but again, that's a really fine line because you don't know what's taunting. And I mean, that's going to be the ref's discretion. But I would like to see these kids be able to celebrate a little bit. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, they're turning on the TV on Saturdays and Sundays and they're watching these guys do these dances every time they score. So naturally, that's going to be the uh, kind of the progression as it comes down to high school. I mean, just like we're dealing with these knee pads that the kids keep trying to pull up higher and higher and higher. Because I watched the game. This is totally side. I watched the game last night. A kid from Indiana might as well have been wearing shorts. He had his pants pulled up so high. I mean, obviously these refs are tasked with doing that, and I think they enforce the rule the way it's written on the books, and so I don't really have a problem with it. But I don't really like the rule.
Yeah. Well, it was an awful. I don't want to say awful way to end it, but it made a more challenging decision for you. But you would have gone for two anyway. But you would have had more options from the 3 yard line in terms of the running game and things that you didn't have. But it was a great play. So, Coach, wrapping up here, uh, Alex Drege, Angelo Drege, Dominic Nisley. This is going to be a tough act to follow. Who do you have a running back in mind next year? It's going to be in the level of those guys.
Well, we played Matthew Weiler a lot this year, number 8. He,
Yeah,
he ran the ball a lot when we moved Dom out. So we have really high expectations for him. But, Julian, that's the beauty of high school football. It's who's going to put in the work and who's going to step up and who's going to fill those shoes. When Alex graduated, if you had asked me the same question, I would say, I don't know who's going to be the next guy. I don't. And Angelo worked his tail off and made himself that guy. And then when Angelo left, you asked me who's going to be the next guy. I would have said, I'm not really sure we've got that guy. And Dominic worked his tail off and became that guy. So I think that's, again, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier. Who's going to put the work in? Who's going to grab that bull by the horns and make him so that we can't make him that featured back? And we have that expectation for Matthew, but there's some other kids in our program that are going to push him. And I hope somebody, gosh, it'd be nice if one of those boys steps up and has the type of seasons those guys have had. Be
yeah,
very helpful for us.
yeah. Yeah, Matt Weiler is definitely an eye catcher, so definitely keep our eye on him. for next year. Well, Coach, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. Again, congratulations on just an amazing season. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed, watching your team and watching those games, and also, talking to you about the sport and about life and about motivating and inspiring young men. I think you're a credit to your profession. Madison, you guys are good in so many different sports. I don't know what it is about that community, but hats off to all that you guys do. And I hope you enjoy your off season if you guys if you get one. I know baseball's coming up too. You are going to coach baseball, right? Yeah. And so I just want to wish you the best in the off season and look forward to 2025.
Appreciate it, Julian. And again, thank you so much for promoting in high school sports. It means a lot. So thanks.
Oh, it's a great time. You're welcome, Coach. And again, have a great holiday.
Okay, you too. Thank
All right,
you.
buddy. Take care.